Yeah, I mean, that's also the most straightforward theory about Ronaldo in 1998 I've ever heard. It's generally, that story isn't complete without the conspiracy ones. But
I think the winner will come from Brazil or Portugal, actually.
Japanese suns rise, Belgium stars fall, and Germany are given Das Boot. Later we'll be joined by ESPN's Mark Ogden ahead of episode 3 of the Ronaldo World Cup show. But first, Daniel McDonnell's day saw Luis Suarez deny he's the devil, then saw the Red Devils go home, and finally saw Spain lose, but arguably improved their chances in the tournament. So after another mad day, Dan, what's your highlight?
I don't know. I mean, I think probably the second half in Japan, Spain, because the first half was so dull. Like Spain were ahead, they were sort of in control. I was in a bad seat, and I was just thinking, like, this is my final double header of the competition. It's not allowed. Like, you do, I can do it on Friday, but I'm not going to take up the option, and you're not allowed to do it in the knockout stages because just in case there's extra time and stuff, there'll be carnage. But I was sort of thinking, yeah, like, this double header is just, you were just pushing it. You've just gone too far with this one, and but it's like that old thing, never give up on a game. Never
Absolutely.
presume that it's suddenly going to be super dull. And it all changed. And I mean, was the ball in? Was it not? Everyone by now has seen angles to support their case. Luis Enrique at his post-match press conference didn't even know. He claimed there wasn't even a time when Spain were actually going out. He wasn't even sure about that. So, just every
Wow.
minute there was something happening. I moved seat for the second half and ended up sat next to someone in the Spanish section, and like there was every couple of minutes there was like cheers in response to some goal or other, and that real
Yeah.
sort of last day of a league season vibe of the ripples going around the place. So it was great drama. I mean, the problem is FIFA might be replacing this for 2026 when they go to the 16 3-team groups and have penalty shootouts before the game as the latest rumor to try and add some drama. I mean, why tweak something that works so well? So that was the highlight of the day. I mean, like on another day,
Yeah.
like it started off with sort of, I mean, Uruguay. The news that Uruguay had put up Luis Suarez for the press conference is pretty good. Everyone thinking of a Ghana Uruguay preview after 2010 and the Luis Suarez game, and I mean, they put up the man himself. Which was great. He had the shadow boxing of everyone waiting. A couple of questions about how things were in the Uruguay camp before
Yeah.
the Ghana guy takes it, and everyone's like, "Here we go, here
Yeah.
we go."
Get your notepad filled and then ask the question.
Yeah, and in the middle of that, I watched Romelu Lukaku have the worst half an hour of his life, and that's
Yeah.
third on the list, but of itself, incredible. Great day of drama, must be said.
Yeah. They have high drama, all right. It was I don't know, like the Lukaku one. I mean, you can't say Belgium deserved to go through, really, but it was crazy stuff. I mean, I think we both had Morocco, a bit like the other night where we had Poland and Argentina to go through. I think we both had Morocco and Croatia to go through, but Croatia looked so comfortable, and then it was like with a certain, it happens, the psychology of football, where you know suddenly when you've got something to protect as opposed to something to go for, they look like the better team, and then suddenly they realised actually if we concede here, we're gone. So they kind of set back to protect what they had. And I mean, Lukaku was just, it was awful to watch. You just, on a human level, you just feel so sorry for someone in that situation.
Yeah, and I think as well, I have a little bit of sympathy for Lukaku, right? Because listen, I mean, at full time, he knows. I mean, can you imagine like his world now? Um, if he's lying up awake and you're tempted to type into social media or something, and like he'll have a million messages and memes and jokes and whatever. But the thing about it is, like the missed chances completely justify his presence. Like he actually unsettled Croatia
Mm-hmm.
big style too. I agree with you. Like the scenario obviously unsettled them. That naturally happens, but also as well when they had sort of Dries Mertens in the first half and Trossard, and they had a slightly different setup to face, and then all of a sudden they have this focal point. You even saw one or two bad decisions defensively caused by Lukaku's presence, a little bit of panic. So, like he sort of got himself into all the right positions. Like he didn't hide,
Hmm.
and yet, like he had an absolute nightmare. I mean, I was writing about it afterwards. I mean, Martinez going is no big surprise, but like in some ways, I mean, Lukaku's a great distraction for Martinez because to me, like chatting to some people here, big, and I know we had Bart on yesterday as well, and like he dropped Hazard, which people feel he should never have played him in the tournament at all.
Hmm.
That was a big mistake. Um, and the other issue is that like I mean, even like Jeremy Doku would come on, like a young player. People in Ireland might have seen him a couple of years back at the under 17 Euros. That he was, for all the talk of the old players, he probably stuck with a lot of the old players and didn't gamble. But
Yeah,
Lukaku is the one to blame now in some weird way.
yeah,
But there's more to it than that.
yeah. I think if you ever need a definition of what match fitness is, you should just watch that last half an hour of Lukaku, where I think he's played something like 36 minutes since August or something was the stat, and like those chances that he had. I mean, the match fitness is basically the difference between kind of anticipating and reacting. Whereas, like if he's on form, he's anticipating that the defender misses that one that comes across that ends up hitting him in the chest. He's probably one more step ahead of that right-footed shot that hit off the post. It's a half step, it's a half second, and it's the difference between scoring and in this case scoring and going through, or not scoring and going home. And I always feel sorry for players in that situation. There's been quite a few of them over the years. I mean, Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, famously in '98, was shoved out to play despite being nowhere near himself because managers aren't. I don't know, brave enough or strong enough sometimes, and they just hope that there's going to be a flash of something. But that's going to be whatever. He won't need social media or anything. That'll be burned into his brain for as long as he's around.
Yeah, I mean that's also the most straightforward theory about Ronaldo in 1998 I've ever heard. It's generally, that story
Well,
isn't complete without the conspiracy ones. But no, I agree with you. I mean, I actually felt a little bit for him on the one that came off the post because I was right in front of that in a great line, and I mean the angle. You can see how that one happened, but I completely agree with you about the other ones. It was just like he was almost in the right position, and it was that just 1 second of sharpness, and probably even it was accumulated confidence issues from the previous ones as well that were
yeah,
affecting him. So, um, like it's rough, but I think probably on the basis of the performances across the three games, I think the best two teams went through, even though
yeah,
Croatia were still a little bit lucky. Like they completely got away with one, and now also sort of find themselves in a position where they're playing Japan rather than playing Spain, which is a sort of
hmm
a weird conclusion to the day for them, albeit they're in the Brazil and Argentina half of the draw.
yeah. There's there's a madness about the groups, those particular groups where you know two groups that contain Spain, Germany, Croatia, and Belgium, and the groups are topped by Japan and Morocco. We'll come back to Morocco at a later date. I mean, they've had a phenomenal run. They finished the job yesterday, and like it's a strange one where Spain are sort of saying, well, where I feel like some of the comments around Spain, they've opened things up. I mean, even said in the intro there that they've probably possibly opened things up for themselves to go further in the tournament. But I mean, at the end of the day, they lost to Japan, they drew with Germany, and the only reason they're through is because they absolutely hockeyed Costa Rica. And, I mean, you were at the game there, like were they impressive, or were they impressive in the they kept a lot of the ball type of way? And I'm just curious, like what's it feel like being at those games where you see the stats, you see the passing numbers, you see all those things, but yet they lost the game and didn't exactly they weren't exactly convincing against Germany either.
Um, no, I mean they had 17% possession, Japan, and this is the thing. So the way my day worked out, I wasn't filing live at the Japan Spain game, so I was thinking, right, I can actually really watch this match without that sense of like taking notes of chances and stuff like that. And particularly in the first half, I was like, right, I haven't seen Pedri in the flesh before, Gavi. I just want to take this in a bit, Balde, the left back, and they are very young. Like I won't give them that. I know they have Busquets and Morata. But the whole thing is there's a real sort of belief in the younger players, and Olmo is a small bit older, but like they're still all sort of under 23 sort of age bracket. And yeah, I was watching Pedri. I was like, I'm going to watch Pedri for 5 minutes here, and I watched him, and it was great. Like, it was very structured. Busquets with Pedri to his left and Gavi to his right. They generally didn't really move from their position dramatically until the movement, the rotation, like demanded it, and it was nice. They were comfortable. They were in control, and as I said, like, it was grand because it was a stress-free night for them, and I just thought this is a bit of a nothing match. But what was striking was in the second half that when they were completely sucker punched and went behind, there was nothing really, and that's how they went out of Euro 2020, right? Like, in the sense that they they they're obviously better than people thought. They were obviously competitive in every game, but in the end, they just got done. And you just sort of feel like this is something that's probably going to happen to them again. I don't know. I mean, they could sort of react to it. Like, I know in Euro 20 in the Euros, but they did eventually lose on penalties. Okay, that's maybe a little bit unfair,
Yeah.
but there was a feeling like they were the dominant team in the game and didn't do enough to win it. And you just kind of feel, are they going to end up in penalties in this tournament?
Yeah.
Even against Morocco potentially. So yeah, I was a bit underwhelmed. I mean, I know we've got the chat with Mark Ogden coming up, and I spoke to him prior to these games, and he doesn't mention Spain as like a potential winner, and I thought, is that an oversight? But it's probably aged pretty well, because I wouldn't be thinking of them in those terms now at all.
Yeah, it does look like Spain will, well, dangerous as it is to make predictions, if you are going on what you'd expect, it would seem to be that the likelihood is Portugal and Spain will meet in a quarter final. And after the break, we'll be joined by Mark Ogden, who talked earlier to Dan about Ronaldo and why the World Cup needs its stars.
Yeah, so I'm here with Mark Ogden from ESPN. Mark, how are you enjoying your World Cup experience?
Hi Dan, yeah, it's different, isn't it? I mean, I think I'm on a run of tonight will be my fifth 10 p.m. kickoff in 5 days. I've got another one tomorrow night, and this sort of thing you'd never do in a normal World Cup. You'd never have back-to-back games. I think last week I did a 10 p.m. followed by a 1 p.m. So I was basically leaving one ground and having a couple of hours sleep and go to the next. But no, listen, it's really, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the atmosphere's been great. I think the alcohol ban has actually helped. It's such a friendly place. We know a lot of the issues off the field, which are well documented, but the fan experience that I've seen has been brilliant. Everyone's getting on, and there's loads of fans from South America, the Middle East, North Africa, and it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. So
you're working for ESPN, so it's an international organisation. What's the big hook for you? I'm thinking the Friday games, we've got Ronaldo involved, we've got Messi in Argentina still going in the competition. I know we've been posting stuff around the colour around those matches. Like, what is the global story for you in this tournament?
Well, obviously, so previously being at ESPN, I was at 2 English newspapers, and you do a tournament on that basis, and it's total England. You wouldn't even know that the rest of the world was here, and I find that quite suffocating at times. But ESPN's totally different. England is just one of 32 competing nations. It's a big one, but it's not the be-all and end-all. So the big driving force, obviously, this World Cup is the US. The US are huge because they're back at the World Cup and they got into the knockout stage, so it's brilliant for that. But yeah, it's Messi, it's Ronaldo, it's Neymar. That's the Holy Trinity. The trifecta, call it whatever you want. They are the big names, and they just drive traffic absolutely at insane levels. And anything that they do makes news. And obviously this
attention please.
Yeah, because I suppose Cristiano Ronaldo, I know you previously would have worked on the Manchester beat, and I know you've still been vocal enough about Cristiano Ronaldo's situation in recent weeks and months. I mean, what have you made of him here? Because when he came in under this obvious cloud, but I mean, he was embracing the photographers before the first game. He's got a Budweiser Man of the Match award in his pocket, and they've done okay, Portugal. So I don't know, what have you made of his overall contribution?
This is quite masochistic of me, because I've said a few things that have been quite critical of Ronaldo and had endless abuse, so I'm going to carry that on now. Listen, I love Ronaldo as a player from when he started at United back in 2003 right till recently. Brilliant player, brilliant professional, an absolute example for everybody, but something's gone on in the last 6 months which is just I think he's realised that he's not the player he was, and he's struggling to maintain that level. I mean, he's still a great, player in flashes, but at this World Cup, it's just been all about him. It's been kind of embarrassing, really, because the penalty against Ghana, I think he was very lucky that was a VAR thing, and that's another issue. I think VAR had kind of been celebrity-led at this World Cup. Messi getting a dodgy penalty, Ronaldo getting one. But everything about Ronaldo, the goal situation against, I've been that long, I can't remember who they were playing.
Well, they had the header against Uruguay.
Sorry. He didn't touch it, and he celebrated it as if it was his. It was like a 9-year-old in the playground. It's my goal. And then you've got the situation with Bruno Fernandes and Fernando Santos, both not having the courage to say, no, it was my goal. And the day after, the Portuguese FA talking about appealing to FIFA to give him the goal. It's like, it's not about Ronaldo. It's ridiculous that this Ronaldo show continues. And it turns out that goal would have, had it been given to him, would have equalled Eusebio's record at World Cups of 9. So I can see why he wanted another record, but it's a team game. And I thought Portugal were better when he went off. When you've got, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, João Felix, Rafael Leao, all these really good players coming to the fore. But back to your point, Ronaldo drives traffic, Messi does, Neymar does like nothing else. So, in this World Cup, as you've seen, you get to games and you see Neymar shirts, Messi shirts, Ronaldo shirts. That next level of player, I don't see Mbappe shirts, I don't see Haaland shirts, I don't see Kane shirts. It's just them three. So, and they're all, in their 30s now. So it'll be interesting in the next wave of players, because the next World Cup, I don't think, certainly two won't be here. Neymar might, but I don't think Messi and Ronaldo will be. So who's going to be the big star?
What do you think of Argentina then? I mean, I know we've both been at the Argentina game this week. They looked sort of grave pronouncements being made after the opening game, and now all of a sudden the draws sort of opening up nicely, and that's the dream for the organisers, right? This is the one they want more than anyone else, because they are completely divorced from any of the other controversies.
Yeah, I think they're a bit ragged, to be honest. I've not been convinced. I mean, last night or whatever day it was, early today, whatever. I thought they were good against Poland, but they weren't great. And I think there's a massive reliance on Messi, as we know. I just think in midfield and defensively, as soon as they play a decent team, they'll get beat. Which is a shame, because we all want to see Messi in the final. Really, we're all romantics, aren't we? Do we want to see a Messi Ronaldo final? Yes, but no, because it would be all about them too. But I think the Argentina fans are brilliant, and as soon as they go home, it'd be really sad, because what we don't want is to get to the semis, to the quarters, and have 7 European teams and 1 non-European team. Because the one thing that this World Cup is, the one area of the world that hasn't travelled is the European fans. There's very few European fans today. We'll walk around. You don't see Dutch fans or German fans or French fans in the numbers you used to do. England fans even. You just don't see them.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting what happens in the atmosphere if that's the case. But in terms of the World Cup story, Argentina, Messi going as far as he can, it is the dream scenario. It's like Man United from the Premier League again. That's what it is. It's that they are the Man United of the World Cup.
I think we're probably on a similar page to this as well. I mean, Russia was similar enough in the sense of the set American fans. I mean, it does make you think about 2030 and that Argentina and friends bid relative to like the Saudi Arabia chat and all this other stuff. I mean, can we trust FIFA with their current voting structure, even the new one, to deliver that?
Well, the new one is just as bad as the last one, in the sense that it's one member, one vote, and we know how it works. A lot of African nations, a lot of Central American nations, Asian nations would greatly benefit from any financial aid that would come their way, whether that's correctly or incorrectly. But Saudi Arabia have got an awful lot of money to influence, nations, and I do worry about that. I mean, the romantic notion, 100 years since Uruguay, 1930, football crazy area, part of the world, and Listen, the Middle East has had a great World Cup, I think, but one another in 8 years at Saudi, it just doesn't smell right to me. Especially with the idea they're having it with Greece and Egypt. It's just, let's get back to, we've not had it in a true world. We had Brazil in 2014, but in a real football nation, they've had a lot of experiments over the years, quite rightly, but I think it's now to go back to a proper football nation, where if the host nation is playing, the ground shakes. Do you know what I mean? With Qatar, they went out, nobody noticed. Yeah.
Just two things. I'm just thinking, in America, 2026 is as I said, your employer that's going to be a sort of a fascinating thing. 22 years on from, or 32 years on, even God, from '94. Scary thought. What's your sense on how that might go? And look, what's the interest levels in the USA journey here? Because you're doing sort of a lot of live TV stuff to America. Like, are you getting a sense of excitement building around it there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interest is really big, and there was a bit of a concern at one point with it being a Winter World Cup because it clashes with, NFL, basketball, the big sports. But traffic has been massive, and football is a really big sport. It'll never attract a certain audience in the US. The NFL crowd is not going to watch football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. But there's still a massive, massive groundswell of Americans and the whole diaspora of different communities, Italians, Hispanics, Irish. Everybody in America loves football, and it's a thing that is not the kind of the Midwest, but Midwest is now a big football hotbed, surprisingly. So all parts of America have got big interest in it, and obviously Mexico's huge, and Canada as well. So it will be a really good World Cup, and I think obviously Ireland will qualify and play in Miami midday.
Oh yeah, but the 48-team World Cup surely will be fine.
In Miami, with all wearing baseball caps.
The Steve Staunton look.
But I do think that the one thing that people worried about the heat in this World Cup and the conditions, it's going to be horrendous in Mexico, the US in June, July. So, but it'll be a great World Cup, because I thought USA '94 took the World Cup to a different level. Italia '90 was the last of the traditional World Cups for me. USA '94 was when FIFA realised, wow, we can make a lot of money out of this and make it a real kind of event. So what the US does in 4 years' time, I think it'll propel it to a different level again. So looking forward to that one.
Just finally, I mean, you are English. I know you're not necessarily the flag-waving Englishman type, but I don't know. Is it coming home question? Like, what's your sense? I know you haven't necessarily been at all the England games, but what's your sense? Because I know you're a little bit removed from it, so you're not sort of immersed in it every day.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in my career to have spent a lot of time doing Ireland and Northern Ireland and Wales, so I see it from a different side, and I can see the nonsense that goes with the England, circus at times. But is it coming home? I think England have got a good chance, actually. I do worry that in midfield, that when they come up against Croatia 2018, Italy Euro 2020, when they come up against a team that can pass the ball and keep the ball, that's when England have problems. They're due to play France in the quarters, so France for me is a big test. They're not France of 4 years ago, but if they get past that, then it's Brazil. So they've got the African champions next, the world champions after that, the record World Cup winners after that, and then maybe Argentina in the final. So no, it's not coming off.
So at this, you've sort of half written off Argentina there, and England. Who is your winner then?
I think Brazil. I just think Brazil have looked good. Nobody's been outstanding for me, but I think Brazil have looked strong, and I think the draw is quite kind. I think today. I do fancy Portugal as an outsider. I think they're due to me. I think if they can find a way to sideline the Ronaldo nonsense, they've got some very good players. They're good at the back. They've got a good goalkeeper. They've got a good midfield. They've got the full package. Well, I think the belief, if they play Brazil in a quarter or a semi, have they got the mentality to beat Brazil? I'm not sure, but I think the winner will come from Brazil or Portugal, actually. Interesting.
Good stuff. Listen, Mark, it's been good catching up. Enjoy the rest of it.
Cheers, pal.
So Mark there fancying Brazil to go all the way. They're back in action this evening in Group G, and we'll get to predictions for that group in a minute. But Dan, you're going to be at Ghana v Uruguay 12 years after the infamous game in 2010, which Suarez obviously talked about. It's hard to ask what you're expecting, but was the press conference sort of some kind of psychological masterstroke from the Uruguayan team?
Yeah, that did actually cross my mind, the idea of sort of some, like Uruguay are in a little bit of crisis relative to expectations. Seems to be one or two issues going on about comments made in the press by players after the Portugal game. So bring out Suarez and it might absorb some of that. It was natural that 2010 was going to come up. I mean, it was an incredibly big event in the life of Ghana as a nation, and Uruguay and Suarez too. But Ghana obviously were the losers from it. And it was it's actually very striking, though, that the Ghana players, like Thomas Partey was in after, the coach Otto Addo was sort of supportive of Suarez, even because Suarez's thing was it's not my fault, I didn't miss the penalty. Asamoah Gyan did. So there you go, deal with it. And a lot of people are like, that's absolutely fine. But I suppose you take it like the Henry thing. For Ireland in some ways, like he's remembered as a villain. Now I'm not going down that road again, but I did see Henry obviously crying today with Lukaku, or Lukaku crying on Henry's shoulder. I still, Henri still stirs a few emotions in me, but that's probably because of how insincere he was in the afterwards, rather than the fact that he
Yeah,
did it. I've no issue with the fact that he
fair.
did it. But what I always had the issue with Henri was that he was calling for the replay. I mean, it was never going to happen, but it was a great PR move to do it.
Yeah,
Suarez, in a way, sort of like owned it from the start. And I remember I was there for that game. It was an extraordinary night. And even just gone back over the archives today for my piece on it, it reminded me I was at the pre-match press conference for the semi-final at that time, where Oscar Tabarez, the coach, was going mad over Suarez being vilified and um, yeah, like in a way the Uruguayan stance hasn't changed in 12 years. Like they've
yeah,
stayed consistent all the way through. Um, and it was fine, but the Ghanaians themselves don't want to get into it, as in the squad, the staff. Andre Ayew was asked the other day, he's the only remaining player, and he just didn't get into it. But then you've got his elder brother did a piece with The Athletic where he said that everyone in Ghana and everyone in Africa hates Luis Suarez, which sort of, I mean, sometimes the headline just comes to you, right? Like it
yeah,
is a quote.
absolutely.
So I think there's one of those things where I think the Ghana camp are deliberately playing it down, but I still suspect that they'll feed off that emotion in their own way. Um, and if it's full time and they're through and Suarez is on the pitch, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a comment or two of some description. But that was incredible. I mean, like Soccer City, I can't believe it's 12 years, but everyone says that about the passing of time, I suppose. Um, but that was just one of the most extraordinary nights of all time. And I think, like Suarez, what I like about Suarez, he's so single-minded. Like all the great sports people are, they're totally selfish, total tunnel vision. Like he only saw that through the prism of Uruguay, as we all do with our own countries. In international
Absolutely.
football, like Ireland rob Armenia a year or two after the handball, and we analyse whether Trapp got his decisions right. And in Armenia, like they remember this for a decade as an absolute outrage. And they do Ireland last June and love it as a consequence. And like the thing about that night was that this was the symbolism of what this meant for like an entire continent. Like I was staying with a white family in Johannesburg, a very progressive family in terms of their outlook, who like I remember our sort of landlady for that tournament, because it was a guest house. She was so emotional about her white kids supporting Ghana and feeling African. And there was that real vibe that was building around it, and all of that like wrapped up in the emotion of that Ghana miss and the penalty shootout. And Suarez is that villain figure. But sure, in his world, this doesn't matter. I was just doing
No,
it
it doesn't.
initially for Uruguay, and like his attitude today is very similar. He doesn't like he went on some point about Portugal beat us in 2018. You don't see us going on about it or words to that effect, but that's not comparable. Like this is he
Yeah,
said
get
something.
over it.
He said something about the Ghana players. There were probably 8 or 9 at the time. Um, they were 8 or 9 at the time, and probably wouldn't bother. Like I was 8 for Italia '90. If Ireland had been screwed out of a semi-final by something like that, I think I would have remembered it. And like, you'd be pretty sort of
Yeah.
hurt by it. So anyway, so I'm sure it will be there in some description, and that's why, to me, it's the only game I'm doing on the Friday, but it's definitely the game to be at.
And do you see Ghana going through? Might as well get into our predictions here. Do you
Yeah.
see Ghana going through?
Quick fire predictions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Uruguay might do it. I feel like Uruguay might do it 2-1. I don't know. I don't know a lot in this, but I'm pretending to know. And I think maybe I'll go for Uruguay 2-1. Ghana have been a little bit
Yeah.
like they've been a bit, their game's been a little bit scatty, like, so it's very hard to know what to expect from them.
I'm going to go for one of these kind of mad days. I think where Ghana and Uruguay draw and South Korea beat Portugal, and people are looking at goal difference and goals scored and all that sort of. I think Portugal are basically through, barring disaster and something for Ghana. So I think I'm going to go for Ghana, Uruguay to draw, South Korea to win, but Ghana to go through.
South Korea, Portugal for me. The only thing is, yeah, I'll go for 2-1 South Korea. Actually, I think more than one. If South Korea win by more than one, it gets very interesting depending on scenarios. So yeah, I'll go for
absolutely.
a pair of 2-1 results.
Good stuff. And into the evening games in Group G, Cameroon, Brazil. I know Cameroon need to win, obviously, to try and go through. But Switzerland, Serbia is one of those games that could be spicy. Serbia need to win, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Brazil to win 1-0 against Cameroon. I think they'll just do enough. Well, Cameroon probably have to go for it. Will it be more open? But Brazil won't let things be too open, even if it's they sort of refresh their options a bit. So I'll go for that. Switzerland, Serbia. I think my prediction is changing for this after watching Serbia against Cameroon. They were just a little bit all over the shop. And Pavlicic, the defender, got injured. Will he be fine? They lost their shape when he went off. They lost a little bit of defensive order. He's only 21, but defensively, I think they've surprised a couple of people with who they've picked. People with the Irish staff and people who would have been sort of familiar with Serbia wouldn't have expected one or two of the combinations they've seen from them. I think Switzerland are probably better than them. I feel like I trust them a bit more. 1-1 will do it for Switzerland, won't it? Like I think it will.
Yeah.
The way things pan out, unless Cameroon, put a number on Brazil, which isn't going to happen. So I'll take Switzerland to do enough.
Yeah, I think it's similar enough. I think I might take a 0-0 on that one, and probably Brazil to just have enough. Even the Brazilian reserves, if Cameroon are going for it, I think Brazil will hit them. And as you've said and written, Brazil, this isn't a swashbuckling Brazil team. Like, they'll keep things tight. They're, by definition, they keep things tight. So I think they'll do that against Cameroon and have enough. Thanks for that, Dan. We'll hope for a similar drama to 12 years ago today, but at least it's an earlier kickoff this time. Thanks for listening to Indo World Cup. Watch us on YouTube or independent.ie or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.